Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lecture. Well, actually more an explanation of some of the things that went wrong on paper number 2 and how you can avoid them. Before I get started, let me just say that one of the other classes that I'm teaching this semester has essentially all but shut down. None of the students are doing anything. So when I look at what y'all are doing with everything that you need to do and everything, all the other classes that you have and everything that you're going through right now, I just want to say I am absolutely proud of each and every one of you. Even those of you that may be a little bit behind in your work, you're still putting forth the effort that they aren't. So I'm very happy at that. Anyway, getting on with what I wanted to talk to you about, I am going to show you some errors that are coming up, still coming up, I should say, in paper number 2. So let's take a look at those, shall we? All right. These are a couple of sentences that are not taken from your papers, but they are similar to sentences that were written by some of you. In fact, by many of you. These are some common errors that keep coming up. If you were to look at this first sentence, for instance, you will notice that there are no less than 4 errors in it. In fact, there are 3 errors, but one is doubled. All right, first of all, one of the difficulties that people are having is with credit tags and with signal phrases and with introductory phrases that tell us who the source is that you are quoting. If you have something like this, this is going in the right direction. This is what needs to essentially happen with a credit tag. You need to give the name of the author. You need to let us know who they are and where they're writing or what have you. But be careful, because a lot of you are doing this sort of thing where you do explain who the author is. But if you've got a phrase like this, remember what commas are used for. Anything that's set off in commas, like so, can be lifted out of the sentence without damaging the sentence. Let me show you what I mean by that. If we were to take this out, you'd still have a sentence that makes sense, right? Which means that anything that's between those commas could be lifted out without a problem. Another difficulty that a lot of you are running into is when to use italics and when to use quotation marks. Don't use both. Do not do this, which some of you are doing. Yeah, no, don't do that. Instead, if it is the name of a newspaper, a website, a magazine, a movie, a television show, a journal, anything long, anything big, yeah, I know, insert joke here, then you would put it in italics. If it is something that is shorter, like an article title or a journal article title or an episode of a TV show or an episode of a web series or anything short like a poem, then that would go in quotation marks. If any of you decides to write about a play, that is italicized, even if it's a 1-act play. I know that's considered shorter, but it's still a play and it's still a long work and it's considered italicized. Next problem is what you put at the end of these introductory phrases. This is something to bear in mind, that you don't have to come up with anything crazy here. You don't have to say expresses, for instance. We express emotions, but something has to follow that verb. So you can't just say he expresses something, because the verb to express without anything after it, it has an uncomfortable connotation to it, so I wouldn't use it. Also, don't do this sort of thing. Discusses. It is left alone. It doesn't have anything following it. In fact, you should even use discusses. You can say says. You can say states. You can say argues. You can say writes. But whatever you do, make sure you have a comma after it, because some of you are leaving out the comma. And finally, the other difficulty that everyone is having, and I do mean everyone because I marked this error probably more than any other error that I marked on paper number 2, is this jotty. If you have a period at the end of a quotation, then it goes inside the quotation marks. However, if you are citing it and you have a page number, it goes after the citation. If you don't have a citation, however, you put it inside. And remember, web pages do not have page numbers. There were at least 4 or 5 papers that gave me a page reference when it was obviously a web source. So please don't do that. It's bad. Bad. Sad. Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. Okay, this next sentence here, in fact, I'm going to separate these out so we can see them better. This next sentence here, lots of people are doing this. Now, here's what's wrong with this. If you are giving an article title, then you can't say it says. And you know why? Because it, the pronoun, refers to the article title. In essence, you are repeating the subject. It's better to do this sort of thing. The article unnecessary pronouns says, because it is the article that's saying it. Now, some of you are doing the same thing when you do have authors' names. In the book by John Bunyan and Solomon Grundy, they write. Now, what you can do here is a couple things. You can either say, you wouldn't say the book writes or anything like that, but you could do this, in their book, comma, John Bunyan and Solomon Grundy write. Some of you, very fewer of you, are doing this, that you're giving the name of somebody and then following it immediately with he or she or they after a comma. Don't do that. Again, you don't need to put a pronoun and the subject that it refers to. You just need the pronoun. And finally, this is coming up every once in a while, this weird construction in which, let me just put it to you this way. Anytime you feel the desire or the urge to use the phrase in which, don't do it. The reason why is because you're probably going to use it wrong. And I'm absolutely serious about that. 9 times out of 10 people are going to use the phrase in which wrong. The reason why it's wrong here is because it's not necessary. In fact, what is necessary is the which part. The club which he belonged to decided to expel him. In fact, we probably wouldn't even use which, we'd say that. The club that he belonged to decided to expel him. Remember, which is used for those phrases that can be lifted out. So you don't actually need it here. If you were to say this, however, the house in which he lived, in fact, let's do that. The house in which he lived burned down. Now, that's why the in which is there, because you have to tell us what it is that he's living in. You can't do this. And you see why, don't you? Because it's got 2 ends and no outs. Oh, God. Yeah, or you could do that, but don't do both. In other words, if you are using the phrase in which, please think about it, won't you? Thank you. Here are a couple of problems that are coming up, and these are just general gripes, but these are things that are fairly serious errors. Continuing on, the phrase continuing on is not an acceptable transition. Don't use it. If you're going to use something like that, use to continue. And by the way, do use transitions, because some of you are not putting transitions either in your paragraphs or, more importantly, at the beginnings of paragraphs. Even something simple like first of all, secondly, third, those are fine. But do use them, but don't use continuing on. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, but it's really awkward. And I saw it in at least 4 papers this time. All right, another thing is that despite its name, the United States is not plural. The United States is a single country, so it requires a singular verb, not a plural. We wouldn't say that the United States is currently the focus of the pandemic, because it kind of is, unfortunately. I mean, we would say that. You wouldn't say the United States are the focuses or the focus. You wouldn't say the United States are. It's the United States is. Now, this is something that happened with a few people, and I am choosing to think of it not as deliberate plagiarism, but as accidental plagiarism, simply because citation might be new to some of you. If you copy something word for word from a source without giving credit to that source, even if that source is listed on the works cited page, it is technically considered plagiarism, because it means that you have copied word for word from the source without giving credit to them. What you should do is instead use credit tag. If it's word for word, make sure that those words are between quotation marks. Even if you paraphrase, you need to give credit to whoever it is that you got those words or that information from, or else it's considered plagiarism at worst, which is a failing offense, or poor citation at best, which is worth about a letter grade or two off the final paper. And finally, when you do the works cited page, and I noticed at least 6 or 7 people doing this, I'm not quite sure why, the works cited heading comes at the top of the last page, not at the bottom of the last page of text. In other words, your paper should end, and then there should be a page break, and then works cited should... Kitty, are you using the litter box right now while I'm trying to record something? Okay. Oh, for God's sake. Are you done? You sure now? I think he's fine. Anyway, you should have a page break. And the works cited tag, the works cited heading rather, should come in the middle of the top of the last page, followed by the citations, not at the bottom of the last page of the actual text of the paper. So be careful of that. And also, don't turn in an annotated bib as your works cited, please. Thank you. Now, there is something else that we need to talk about, and that is what's coming up for this week. Oh, that would be so much better with rum. This week, we have my lecture on common errors, which you are watching right now, I hope. You need to read the paper number 3 sample student essays in the handouts folder of course documents. Then you're going to respond to those essays in DB number 8 by writing a post of at least 200 words total on all 3 of the essays. So make sure to grade them on a scale of A through F and tell me why you gave it the grade that you done did. And then I will tell you the grade that it done got. And we will compare notes then. The annotated bibliography on paper number 3 is due under assignments by 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, April 25th, rather than on Sunday. This is so I have enough time to grade them before the next week's work begins. If you do need extra time beyond Saturday the 25th, let me know, but I can't extend the assignment on this one too terribly much, because then it's going to push directly into all the prep work you need to do for paper number 3. This is part of the prep work for paper number 3. So whatever topic I have approved for you that you posted about in DB number 7, as soon as you see my approval for it, you can immediately start doing the research and do everything you need to do for that particular paper. And again, if you need to see me as well as hear from me, you can have a Zoom meeting with me. That seems to be preferable to talking on the phone or on Skype. And just let me know when you want to meet and everything will be fine. Also, this is something that came out today, so I'm just going to remind you, if you need help from a Writing Center tutor, we now have 2 who are specifically assigned to us. They can work with you via Zoom and Google Docs on the days and the times listed below. However, you have to email them directly to set up the time with them, all right? And I would definitely urge you, if you had a lot of errors in paper number 2, to please set up a time with them and talk with them about those first 2 papers, because if you've got a lot of repeated errors and you've been getting lower grades because of them, and I mean, not so much B's and B pluses because those aren't anything to worry about. But if you've seen a B minus slide into a C, or you've seen a C slide into worse, or even if you've had an A minus that slid down to B level, might be a good idea to meet with one of those tutors virtually and see what's going on. You can also talk to me about it, of course. All right. Are you done? Oh, okay, Kitty, you're done. Oh, and so am I. All right, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all, please let me know. You're doing great. You're all doing great. Just please keep at it. We've only got a few weeks left and it's almost over. I know the rest of it isn't almost over yet, and I'm so sorry for that. But at least the class is almost over and everyone's doing fine. Take care. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.